All right, so Nathan from Mammoth Vans is going to walk us through how we actually attach everything to all of the, the fuse block to the power source in the vehicle. On this video, this is for a vehicle that does not have the auxiliary battery, and quite frankly, this is not the recommended procedure, but it works. Through Mercedes, we would prefer that you order it with the auxiliary battery relay and fuse. You can get that auxiliary battery relay and fuse as an option even without having to buy the auxiliary battery. So from Adventure Wagon standpoint, that's sort of the best option. If you're ordering a vehicle, then go ahead and order it with that. If you're doing it on a vehicle that you've already got and it doesn't have that, it'll still work, but what we prefer is that you're not stressing the chassis battery. And that's what Mercedes prefers, obviously, as well. So an auxiliary battery or power source system, be it lithium or a Goal Zero auxiliary battery bank is really preferable, but it's still possible, and so we're going to show you that process on this video. There's another video where we show how you attach it if you do have the auxiliary battery relay, whether you have an auxiliary battery or not. That package includes a little upfitter box that you can open up and attach the power source attach your fuse block directly to that power source. But as it is with this install, we're going to attach it to the battery, which will go into a breaker, so we're protecting the line, and then into the fuse block. So the very first thing we do is we shut off the entire electrical system in the vehicle by unplugging the ground, and we remove the driver's seat. So that's what we're going to do, and I'll let Nathan walk us through all of that.
All right. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is disconnect the power for the chassis battery. And to do that, we're going to get into a panel right here by the gas pedal. So this is the panel here, right next to your gas pedal, which is a smaller one. And you're going to pull from the top left corner. Okay, we're going to pull off like that. And then behind here, you're going to see this connection. And this connection will be slotted onto a silver post. What you're going to do is press down on the red part of the connection and pull it off the post. After that, you can just let it sit down in that area, and the van is safe to work on. Okay, so now we're going to remove the seat. And the seat is just 4 bolts in the corners and 1 electrical connection. So I've got a 10mm on my impact driver. We're going to go ahead and start taking these off. And then you can slide the seat forward to get to the other ones, which I'm going to hand back here to Jeff. Now the seat is free to move, but before you lift the seat off, you really want to detach the electrical connections. And it's important that the battery is disconnected before you do this, or else you might have an error code. So we're going to pivot this so you can see. So right here is a large connector, and what you want to do is pinch the ends with these little pins and pull back towards you like that, and then the seat is free to set on the ground. We're going to lift it and just set it right back here. So we're going to remove the driver's side floor mat and get to the battery box underneath here. So there's 2 screws right by the footwell. And then the whole floor mat comes up. And then this is your battery box. So these are T25s and the battery box is T30s, just for reference. So go ahead and back these out just a little. Go ahead and just slide this plate back and lift. And this is your factory main battery. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lift this cover off. now we're ready to get to work. Okay, so now with the factory battery area open, we're going to remove the cover to the seat box, and just be careful not to tear this. You can thread your seat cable through here, and now we're into the seat box. And so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to move this big plastic tray. Now your van might have other accessories or options in here, but all of them will just have 2 bolts holding this section down. So there's a nut here and a nut back here. They're both 10mm to loosen. And just make sure you know where these are as you remove this, because you don't want to lose those. So here they are. And then with this, we're going to kind of just get it out of the way as best we can. If you want, you can unclip this, which is just a little tab here, and that kind of lets this whole thing move out of the way. Okay, so now that we have this plastic piece moved out of the way, we have really good access to the whole seat box and the factory battery tray. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this long red cable and we're going to route it through the pass-through from the battery area to the seat box area. And the easiest way to do that is to start feeding it from the battery side. So there's a pass-through here, and I'm going to get in here and get it started in this pass-through. And it should feed through really easy. And then you're going to see it kind of poking in this area here. And the best thing to do is just put your, couple fingers in there and guide it out towards you. Like so. So now we have a cable that runs from the battery area to the seat box area. So the connection we're going to use is right here, and this is right off the main battery post. There is a fuse block down here that feeds a bunch of factory systems, and so we're going to hop on right here where the small black wire is attached. So we're going to undo this nut, which is a 13mm. Careful not to drop it. We're going to attach our cable right on top here. So we're just going to make sure that it's flipped down like this, and we're going to attach it on that post there. Alright, just putting this nut back on. Making sure this cable isn't in the way or lying awkwardly on top of anything, because now we want to take the red battery cover and replace that, like so. And then we are going to go to replacing the battery cover and the floor mat. Alright, putting the black cover back on. Start it over the large section and slide it up to the small section of the slot. Tighten these T30s down. And then we put the rubber floor mat back on top of that. Like so. Just make sure that it's not folded or creased in any way. And then we're putting this cap piece back on. With the T25 screws. And that area is all closed up and we're ready to move to the seat box. Okay, so we're going to attach the fuse block and breaker to the back wall here. So here's your breaker, and here's your fuse block. And to attach these, we're going to use 3M Dual Lock, which are these strips here. So first we have to prime the back of the fuse block, the back of the breaker, and the back wall itself. So go ahead and take your primer stick and crush it. And paint the back of your item. You should see it kind of like a chemical trail of sorts. Just like that. Just focus on the top 2/3 of this one. And get all the back of this one. And then we want to get the back of the seat box itself, where these are going to be attached. Alright. And from there we're going to put the actual dual locks on. Let's go ahead and put 2 on the breaker. And put the other half on for when we attach them. Then we're going to put 4 on the fuse block. And I usually tuck them just inside those screw holes so we have nice mounting. There's another one there. Then we're going to move down the fuse block, and we want to kind of hold this on the back wall real quick, because there's a corrugation there that'll change where these lower ones go. So you just want to make sure you've got good contact on the metal. And from there, go ahead and stick the opposite sides on. And then peel the sticky side off. We'll go ahead and press the fuse block on back here. Give it a good press against the back of the seat box. The way that dual lock sets up real good. Same with the breaker, and with the breaker I typically like to set the yellow bar to face up so it's easier to reset. And again, push that on nice and tight. And then our componentry is mounted. So now we're going to attach the ground wire that'll go to the fuse block, and that gets attached in this spot right here. There is a stud coming out of the floor of the van, and that's a factory grounding point. So we're going to take that off, 10 millimeters. Try and make sure that that nut doesn't get too far from you. And we're going to take our cable, put it on top of those, and make sure that none of the factory grounds come off that post while you're working on it. Go ahead and angle that ground cable kind of towards the driver's side door. Go ahead and tighten it up. All right. And now we're going to move on to connecting the positive. Okay, so now we're going to attach that battery, or the cable coming from the battery under the floor, to our breaker at the back of the seat box. We're going to pop that off the wall with our handy dual lock. And we're going to attach this, and one of the sides says BAT, which is battery, which is what we want to attach it to. So we're going to back that nut and lock washer off. Go ahead, attach this. And go ahead and tighten that up. And when you get to this point, you definitely want to switch to hand tools. Don't use power tools for tightening these electrical connections. And so now that that is connected, we're going to connect the positive cable on the other side that's going to go to the fuse block eventually. So this is the cable that will go from the side of the breaker that says AUX, AUX, to the positive side of the fuse block. So we're going to connect this to the breaker. Here we go. And we're going to stick this off at about a right angle. Just like that. And again, we're going to tighten it up by hand, not with a power tool. So. And now we have both sides of the connection that will attach to the fuse block. So with that done, it's time to move on to the fuse block itself. And so now we have the rest of the wiring harness, which is coming through the back of the seat box here. So you're going to have it running down the B-pillar through the back of the seat box. So we've got the two branches of the vehicle here. And what you're going to want to do is organize, basically one branch will go on one side of the fuse block and one side will go on the other side of the fuse block. So in this case, since the fuse block sits like this will be passenger side and this will be driver side. So you look at your cable. This is the driver's side. I know that because of the other ends of the connections I just ran. So this is going to go here. So let's walk through doing a couple of those connections. Okay, so let's make a connection to the fuse block. So we're going to go through here and we want to match up the cables that go with each other. So for example, let's go here. And let's find USB 1. So here's USB 1 negative, and here's USB 1 positive. So I'm going to strip these two. Then I'm going to put the proper ends on them, which for the larger gauge cable is a yellow end, and for the smaller gauge cable is a blue end. Go ahead. And crimp that. And crimp that. And then torch it. And then I'm going to attach them to our fuse block, and these are just Phillips heads connections, so you just want to loosen this up. This is your positive side where the fuses are, and this is your negative side where the double stacked is. So we're going to go ahead and put the negative on top of the spade terminal. Tighten that down, snug it. You don't have to go crazy on them. And do that again on the positive side, like so. And then those are connected. And so now we're going to move on and go ahead and do that process for the rest of the connectors, just keeping in mind to keep the sides separate and group your like sources together, outlets, lights, etc. Okay, so now that we have all of our connections on the fuse block, we're going to go ahead and connect the positive and negative to the bottom and top respectively. So go ahead and loosen these two. And then for the negative, grab your cable that you connected to the floor of the seat box. And in this case, we're going to have it exiting towards the passenger side. And then on the positive side, we're going to grab the cable that comes from the breaker, and I'm going to route it behind here, and again have it exiting the right side. And the fuse box is connected. Okay, so now we're going to actually put the fuses in the fuse block. You have three sizes of fuse. You have 5, 7.5, and 15. The 5 amps go to the yellow lights. The 7.5s go to the white fans. And the 15s go to everything else. So we're just going to pop a couple in here. There's that. And there's that. That's a light there, and here's a 7.5. So let's grab a fan number 1. And then go ahead and populate the rest of the fuse block. And as you can see, we didn't put a fuse in these last two, and that's because those are the two auxiliaries. So since they don't have anything connected to them right now, we're going to keep the fuse out of them for safety. Also, it's important to realize that whatever you hook up to this will probably have its own fuse rating. So make sure whatever fuse you put in this fuse block when you connect that to it has the correct size fuse in it. For example, a D2 heater takes a 20 amp. Wire cutters, snip it, twist it. You can sand this down if you want, but that should be enough to get this clipped in. There we go. And the other thing you can do is you can go ahead and label each one of these clear areas with their corresponding wire names, just so you know what you're working on if you have a problem. So now we're going to actually take this whole fuse block back and attach it back to its dual lock points. You know, making sure that the wires are clear. You know, you've got some wiggle room with these wires here. You want to make sure nothing's going to hit like a breaker button and nothing's sitting on top of a contact. And also, because the 19s have these, usually they have a battery and a little computer here, you want to make sure that's not getting occluded in any way. And so when you're done, basically everything should sit right nice on that back wall. So if you have access, you can reach right back through the seat box, turn the system on and off. One last little thing I'm going to do here is the breaker comes with rubber caps, and I'm going to throw those on. And those are just an extra level of protection. Okay, so now we're going to replace this piece, and something important to keep in mind is that you've got a lot of wires in here from the factory. And one of the most important ones to keep clear is the one that plugs into the seat. So what I'll typically do is I'll take this wire and I'll drape it over the front of the seat box to make sure it basically stays out of the way as we replace this. And so now that we're ready to replace this, we're going to go ahead, kind of work this back in here. You know, you'll have some wires you might need to just push out of the way. Make sure we're not crushing anything. Then we can go ahead and find our stud on one side and the other side. Now, so it's set on the bottom of the seat box, and now is the time to make sure that if you had anything that you removed from that you replace it. For example, I took off this little ignition post block, so I'm going to make sure that gets back, because we always want things to go back where they came from the factory. And pops in there. And now again, you have a bolt in the rear and a bolt in the front. So these can be kind of funny to get where they need to go. So I usually have an extension on an impact driver. I kind of fish it down with my finger on top of the bolt, try and get it to thread. Have it thread like that. Go ahead and do it again. Now this rear one is kind of doubly difficult because it's way down in there. So I usually start by just dropping the nut into there and seeing if it lands right side up. In this case it did. If it doesn't, use a magnet wand to fish it out. And then using the tip of your tool, I know this is probably hard to see, using the tip of your tool to fish that to a point where it'll thread. And there, it threaded on there. And that one can be a little difficult, so just have some patience with it and you should be alright. And then we are ready to put the seat back on and the seat cover and start reassembling the front of the van.